start tonight into tomorrow, 1 to 2 inches. They're kind of like, who knew? All right, I would like to call the Town of Belgrade Board of Select Persons, February 21, 2023 meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Sarah. All right, so the first part of business is to review and approve the meeting minutes from the February 7, 2023 meeting. We'll take a motion to open that item.
So moved.
Moved by Carol, seconded by Barbara. All those in favor? Open for discussion.
I just saw one little thing, which we actually talked about. It was in the town manager's report where it says continuing to reach out to contracts for winter maintenance contract, and it was just supposed to be contacts. So not a big deal, but just so there's no question in 10 years.
Yeah.
And then I had to flip-flop the open meeting and the approval of the meeting minutes. So we closed the public hearing and then opened the board meeting and then approved the meeting minutes. The time was right, just those two were flip-flopped.
So public hearing and
Yeah,
then
so we had motion to close the public hearing at 6:49 and then we motion to open the select board meeting at 6:49. And then under Spirit of America nominations, the first one isn't done yet. So the third person on that was Maureen Milligan. And that's all I had. Did you have anything, Carol?
No, I did not.
So what did you say? The correct person isn't done yet on your.
Right, I'll just let you know what's up, Gina. So it's Maureen Milligan was the third one that was on the last meeting. All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes of February 7, 2023 as amended.
Second.
Moved and seconded and third. All those in favor, Barbara?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
All right, so trifecta. All right, so the first part of the meeting is always public comments. Is there anyone who has something that they would like to bring to the select board's attention that may not be covered or won't be covered on this evening's agenda? Bruce.
Just something real quick, just something for you guys to bring in on your going over the closure policy when you're rewriting that. I think that you guys need to really think about on your closures to wait and do your closures when it starts storming. We now had 3 closures and when the roads have been fine. So I think it's something that you guys want to take in consideration. It's, you know, and maybe if we're gonna have, you know, closures, maybe, you know, like the transfer station, if we're closed during a week, a day or a half a day, or open a half a day on Saturday, or open a full day on Saturday to accommodate the taxpayers in town, so the use of the town office, but meanwhile, the work in the office here falls behind because you don't have anybody here working. Just something for you guys. I just want it on public, you know, in the public record, and just something for you guys to take into consideration.
So I will answer that. I did say all complaints on that could come to me. So I did NOAA, I did WeatherBug, I did AccuWeather, I watched Channel 6, Channel 8, and Channel 13. Every single one of them was calling for 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch of freezing rain, turning to sleet with snow on top of it. So I called it at noontime. I looked at area agencies. There were a handful that were already calling for a closure at noontime, so I thought that that was prudent. If we were ahead of it before it started and we sent people out once there was a glaze of ice on the road. So I will take full responsibility for that. But that's why I did it. And we'll probably, if we're gonna get 12 to 15 inches, just be aware. Close this week too.
That's understandable.
And I'm probably not gonna wait until like Thursday when we have 10 inches on the ground, it'll probably be a little earlier.
I think we need to start being a little more proactive on closures. I think we need to be waiting until it starts storming Thursday, you know, by Wednesday, tomorrow night, you're gonna know, okay, it's gonna snap, you know. Cause it's.
Well,
supposed
if
to
I
pass.
watch all those same things.
Right, but again, you gotta be careful.
I was like, I've done due diligence. I've checked with all the meteorologists that I can get my hands on and they all say the same thing. If there had been some variation and they were like, oh, maybe 5 o'clock and somebody else was like noon,
Yeah, see,
but they were all on the same
Yeah.
track.
at 7 o'clock, the National Service had said that we weren't gonna get any ice in this area. At 7 o'clock in the morning, actually, all you have to do is go online to the National Weather Service for Belgrade, Maine. That's your most accurate weather for this area.
I'll consult on Thursday too. I'll put it in my list. I have more weather
We
apps
can
than
decide
anyone.
before 7 o'clock.
Yes, I called Lorna at 6 o'clock in the morning and she and I both reviewed and talked about what we've done and. She and I agreed that noon wouldn't be too early, but would be prudent enough that if it was unsafe, that we weren't sending folks out right into the middle of it. So does anybody else have anything they'd like to bring to the board's attention?
I
Sarah?
do, and this is a quick follow-up on that, cost sharing formula meeting that we had in the fall with the RSU. I did receive all the information for the tax bills used as pre-information for the meeting. Out of the 5, 2 are correct for the right year for 2022. The other 3 are for 2021. And the 2 of them that actually have properties that have portion of it are exempt. So the real charging of this tax bill were not quite correct. So that I'm just gonna put that out there for it. I think as follow-up, I'm gonna be sending an email to the central office requesting an itemized list of all the expenses that are that come from the additional local fund bucket. We don't have that list. And then additionally to that, we're gonna request to the central office the number of students per school and per grade that belong to Belgrade and to every other school as well. That'll be good information to have at hand when all the decisions have to be made. Finally, I want to report that for this budget season, with this school board budget season, the concept will be to visit each school to present the budget. And I used to like when there was governors of towns meetings. So I think there's value to it, especially in this kind of period where we're having struggling with financial crisis, where everything is up, electric bills, produce and everything else, and all our taxes are gonna be up too. It's very important for all the towns to come together and understand together how that budget is going. So it will be up to this group, maybe reaching out to Rome and request the central office to call the governors of towns meeting, where the budget is presented to everybody at the same time, every town at the same time, at least the governors of towns at the same time. So that's all I got to report. Thank you.
I like that idea, actually, Sarah, because then everybody hears the questions
At the same time.
at the same time and gets all the same information.
And the other thing is I personal take on the school board. There's a lot of people that are very good about policy and understanding the run, run of the district. But when it comes to budget, it seems that only 1 or 2 of us are very in depth with that. And building a budget that big, the more eyes from people that are used to it, like the governor of towns, it could give a more robust feedback to the school system. So that it used to be that before the pandemic, this was done, and since then we got out of the routine of having to go into the towns. It will be my kind suggestion to do that bills are gonna come in September. For taxes.
Well, and if you, when you submit that request to the RSU, if you would like the town's backing for those requests, we're happy to do so.
I appreciate that.
So if you want to draft a letter, we'll sign it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to bring to the board's attention that will be covered on this evening's agenda? All right, seeing none. I can't see that though. That's much better. I'm like, wow, there really is many. All right. All right, so I will. Okay, next up, we have old business, and the first item under old business is the Spirit of America Award nominations. The Spirit of America Foundation tribute is presented in the name of Maine municipalities to local individuals, organizations, or projects for outstanding community service. Nominations are submitted for review by the Select Board, and recipients will be recognized at the annual town meeting. This nomination was received from Mary Vogel, and it's the Spirit of America Award for Catherine Dameron. I'll take a motion to open that item.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay, so this nomination reads, I am nominating Catherine Dameron for the Spirit of America Award because of her many contributions to both the residents of Belgrade and the people of Maine. Katie has been one of the longest standing ballot clerks for the town of Belgrade. She has worked in elections since 2006. She has been a dedicated and very professional ballot clerk who is always on time and rarely wants to take a break. I feel very fortunate as a clerk to have had Katie as a ballot clerk for the last 3 years. She will be dearly missed. Not only did Katie volunteer in elections, but she has also been on the budget committee for the last 8 years. Her dedication to detail working on the town budget has benefited all. Katie served in the state legislature in the 109th, 110th, and 117th as a representative and always had Belgrade residents' best interests at heart. Katie was very active in the Maine Association of Agricultural Affairs and assisted them as a legislative liaison. In addition, she worked for the Maine Promotion Board. The Maine Agricultural Association will be sending over their comments regarding Katie's contributions and to support this nomination. Make a motion that we approve the nomination of Catherine Dameron for a Spirit of America Foundation Award for the year ending 2022.
I second.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Barbara?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
All right, 3 yeses. All right, next up under new business, we're going to start with Bar Harbor Trust presentation. And folks travel. So I'll take a motion to open that item. Second, okay, moved by Barbara, seconded by Carol. You have the floor.
Thank you. We haven't been here in a while, so we'll start. We sent out the documents with a relationship summary, and I believe you have that already. Perfect.
I think the last time we did this was over Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a while. And as a matter of fact, when we were coming here, when we came across Cemetery Road, we took a right-hand turn and not a left.
They like to do that.
So as of, excuse me, January 31st of this year, the balance was 1,386,000 and change. And I just sort of hit the highlights. We will need an updated resolution because we don't have one with a new town manager on it. And I enclosed the old resolution that we still have for your.
I was like, yeah, we need to update.
Oh, thank you so much.
Sorry, y'all.
So right now, you know, we're getting permission on things from Nick and Mary to proceed with things. They're still authorized. So that's who we take our instruction from.
Good thing we haven't lost them too.
Thank you for the water.
You're welcome.
In 2021, we did change the investment management style for this portfolio. Originally, it was on a dividend growth model. And so the new model, and John will discuss this more in depth, more closely tracks the S&P 500. And so we changed that, you know, about 1.5 years ago now. The annual fee on the investments is 0.75%. And on an annual basis, 10% of the income earned is reinvested as principal, and 90% of the income is available for distribution for the town. And we haven't done that yet this year. Normally, we do it sometime in the first quarter. It hasn't been done yet, and usually, you know, there's some back and forth between Nick and I, or the town manager and I, and you know, once we solidify that, it's taken care of, and we will be doing that in the next few weeks. All of the distributions go to Andrewscoggin Bank, where the retail relationships are. I detailed what was distributed in 2022 to that account. And also, so basically we distributed out 24,000, and 15,000 and change was deposited back into the investment account. We send one statement every month to the attention of the town manager. And also there's online access. And then I listed the key personnel that I know are here right now. And basically that's the relationship in a nutshell. And John can talk about the investments.
Excellent. Thank you, Ruth.
Hope you're not thirsty, John.
Yes. Ruth and I can share.
No.
Oh,
No, I'm not fair.
So just a real brief, I'll just start with a kind of an economic update. So looking back at 2022, I'm sure everyone was aware of what occurred in the markets. It was a challenging year for the markets. If you look at the S&P last year, it was down about 18% overall. But what was a little uncommon was that both your stocks and your bonds were down, or stocks and bonds in the overall market were down last year as well too. Typically when stocks are down, bonds tend to perform a little bit better and support the portfolio. And that just didn't occur last year. And that was really due to our central bank, the Federal Reserve. They were raising interest rates aggressively last year. The policy rate was 0 at the beginning of the year and ended at 4.5%. So it was a pretty big move, and the Fed was doing that to fight inflation. Inflation has come down. We feel it has peaked, but it is still at about 6.5%. So it is still relatively elevated. So it does look like the Fed is going to be required to probably continue to raise interest rates at least a couple more times going forward. So we do think that, you know, interest rates now probably are towards their peak, but again, probably have to be raised a couple more times. And so, you know, going forward with stocks, we do think there's probably going to be some more volatility in stocks a little bit, and we've positioned the portfolio a little bit more conservatively, just because we do think there's going to be some more volatility in the stock market this year. And so again, kind of overall have positioned the portfolio more conservatively, you know, based on the investment policy statement that you folks have in place. So just a brief economic update, but I'll jump into the specifics of your portfolio in the handout. You'll see it's labeled page 1 in the bottom in the center, and it looks like this right here. Perfect. This page just highlights your asset allocation or your mix of stocks and bonds. And according to your investment policy statement, your long-term target in stocks is 65%, and long-term target in bonds is 35%. But we can deviate. There is some room to deviate a little each way. And you can see where you're currently positioned. You're at 62% in stocks and 30% in bonds and about 8% in cash. So we are, again, a little bit more conservative in the portfolio, and that is by design. You know, some of that cash is earmarked for the upcoming distributions, as mentioned earlier. And so, you know, some of that cash will come out of the portfolio once we have those numbers for the distribution. So part of that is income cash. And so you can again see the balance there. If we turn to the next page, page 2. Page 2 just highlights the stocks in the portfolio, so it's just referring to that 61-62% from the previous page. And just going into a little bit more detail on the diversification. You can see the majority is in US stocks, and we do have a small portion international. And the rationale for that is, the benchmark that is in the investment policy statement is the S&P 500, which is a domestic US benchmark. So we want to be aware of that and make sure that we're relatively close to that benchmark and not deviating too far. You can see some of the top names that we hold in the portfolio on the bottom half of that page there. We do hold about 50-55 positions in the portfolio, individual stocks. So it is well diversified. And again, with the overall strategy, we are looking to get, because the benchmark is the S&P 500, we are looking to have a good amount of exposure to the S&P 500, obviously. But we want to be kind of smart with how we allocate it. So we're going to overweight or underweight the sectors based on our outlook for the economy versus the benchmark. And then we're also going to overweight and underweight individual positions as well too. So for example, we are underweight a lot of the technology companies, and that did benefit us last year being underweight those names relative to the benchmark. So where we were active, it definitely helped out the portfolio. We didn't avoid all losses, but it was less than what happened in the benchmark. And I'll point out that performance shortly. Going on to page 3. This touches on the fixed income or the bonds in your portfolio. And just to quickly point out a couple of characteristics, you'll see at the top there, it's labeled yield to maturity at about 4.8%. That's the yield or the return that you can expect on your bonds from this point in time until those bonds mature. So it just gives you an idea of the total return, the income, plus any potential price appreciation that you would get from all of your bonds in your portfolio.
Now, John, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
I know previously we were holding the bonds in longer term before they came to maturity. And then we had backed that up a little bit, I think 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now. Are we staying at that conservative and doing more in ones with short-term gains, or are we back to longer term? Like,
That is a good question. So when we did make that strategy change back in 2021, we had already held some bonds in the portfolio, and we all obviously felt they were quality bonds, so we didn't want to sell them. And we feel if we buy a bond, we want to hold it to maturity, because the bond's going to fluctuate in price while we hold it, depending on what happens with interest rates. But if we hold that bond to maturity, we're going to get our par value back and collect the interest along the way. So there were some bonds we held, but then we did buy some additional bonds. And a lot of it does with it. We're looking at, number one, the safety of the bonds. Are they safe bonds? Do they have high quality credit ratings? So we are investing in investment grade bonds that have a higher quality credit rating. And then the second part is, once we feel the bond is safe, how can we maximize the return and the income from that bond? And so that's the approach we're taking. And it really, we're looking at, what do short-term interest rates look like? Where are they? And also, what do long-term interest rates look like? And so that's constantly changing. But right now, actually, short-term interest rates are much higher than long-term interest rates. And so it's kind of a balancing act, because you look at the short-term rates and you say, well, I can grab more yield in the short term here, and not as much in the long term. But that short-term rate is dependent on what our Federal Reserve does. And so if the Fed starts to lower rates at some point, those short-term yields will come down. And then when those short-term bonds mature, we have to invest them at much lower rates. So it's really a balancing act of having some shorter term, but then also having some longer term that we can lock in and say, hey, I can get, close to 5 or over 5% and lock in a bond for 8 to 10 years and know and can count on that income stream. So we're not trying to place a bet on having a whole bunch of short-term bonds or a whole bunch of long-term bonds, and finding a nice mix of both. So that we don't have a large portion of bonds maturing at any one point in time, where we might have a low interest rate environment and then have to reinvest at low rates. So it's really diversifying that risk.
Thank you.
And we can, on the next page, we can see that. Page 4, that just, at the top there, that just highlights the dollar value of bonds that you have maturing in any given year. And so you can see you don't have any maturing in 2023, but then you have some maturing in 24. A decent portion in 25, that is by design in 25. We do own a larger US Treasury, so what many would consider the most safest bond out there is US Treasury. But we think that gives us some optionality. We like the interest rate we got on it, but we also like if things did get worse, typically a treasury would go up in value, and that would allow us to sell that treasury in a market that maybe has a little bit more volatility to it. And then we could sell that and then reinvest it in a higher grade quality corporate that may have sold off, where we could get even a higher yield. So it just gives us a little bit of optionality with that US Treasury. If we turn to page 5, that touches on the investment performance. And you'll see the investment performance in the lower half there. And where it's labeled total fund, that's the performance of your portfolio, the total portfolio. That's including everything all combined together. And so you'll see, and then below that, you'll see a benchmark, and that's the benchmark that's in your investment policy statement. And that's just, we use that as a reference point to make sure that we're on track with our investment strategy. And ideally, we want to be relatively close to that benchmark, either a little bit below or a little bit above, ideally a little bit above. And I want to break this out into, I think it's important to break this out into 2 areas. Anything that's where you see it 3 years or greater, that's going to be, when you're looking at the benchmark, that's not a good apples to apples comparison, we feel, because we were using a different strategy at the 3-year time frame and later. So you're not going to get a good apples to apples comparison. You're going to see a larger deviation because we were using a different strategy at that point in time. So if you look at the 2-year number to the 3-month, that's really where we have the apples to apples comparison of this benchmark and the current strategy. So just like to point out that deviation. And so you'll notice with the 2-year number, the portfolio is up 3.76% versus the benchmark of 3. So we were able to outperform. And even with the 1-year number, we never like to see a down year, but we were able to outperform the benchmark, down 4.5 versus the benchmark of down 6.7. And then, in the past 3 months, shorter term, we feel not as meaningful, but we did have a little bit of a rebound in the market, and the account did participate nicely in that rebound over the past 3 months. And then just below that, we do like to break out the 2 major asset classes, so you can not only see how your total portfolio has done, but also how your stocks and your bonds have done, in both of those asset classes individually. And again, you can see kind of, separating the 3 years and later, and then also the 2 years to 3 months. You can see the 2-year number has really outperformed across the board. So, we feel it's done quite well for the equities. If you look at the fixed income, in the 1-year number, we underperformed a little bit there. That is fairly typical for our strategy, I would say. With the fixed income, we do probably underperform a little bit in a down market, but we do rebound quite nicely, typically. You can see that in the 3-month number with our fixed income is up 5% versus the benchmark of 3.5. So we have rebounded there, and even if you look at the fixed income long-term, you know, even though we underperformed a little bit for the 1 year, we're still up 1.4 versus roughly 1% for the fixed income over the long term as well. So we think overall performance has been pretty solid versus the benchmarks. So if we turn to the next page, we start to get into all the individual names in the portfolio. I won't go into too much detail here unless there's a specific question that someone may have. The only thing I will note is on the last page of the handout, because the Fed has been raising interest rates, money market rates have finally started to pay a decent interest rate, and you'll see that our Bar Harbor Bank money market rate is and that's where we hold your cash, is paying 4.23%. So again, we're getting a decent rate there. That rate does reset on a monthly basis. So we do anticipate that going up to probably around 4.5% for the month of March. So within the next week or so. And as long as the Fed's increasing interest rates, the money market will continue to go higher. That does go both ways though. So if the Fed does decide to cut rates, the money market would start to come down with that decline in interest rates. But as of now, you know, the Fed has been increasing rates. So that money market rate has been going up. So that's all I had for this evening, unless there were any questions.
Jack's not here, and he's usually the one that powers you.
Yeah.
I was expecting Jack's.
No.
He's not on there either.
He can call us.
He will. All right, so I have made a note here, and I'm gonna pass this to the town manager, that we need to get this updated. And then I'd like to get it on our yearly calendar so that it's updated with all the right people all the time. I was like, I'm like, oh.
It's from a few years ago.
Yeah, one of those things that's fallen off our list. All right, does anybody have any questions for them? Have a good night, Sam. All right, seeing none.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
for
for
coming.
coming.
Nice to
Yeah,
meet you.
likewise.
Sam.
Thanks for coming in person. Thanks for
Yeah.
the
thank
walk.
you.
All right, so what I'd like to do at this point, if it's the board's pleasure, is I would like to move the foreclosure bids up. Because the public works, that may take us some time, and I know a lot of folks are waiting to hear what the board's intention is. So is that okay with you, Barbara?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Dan?
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on then to the foreclosure bids and take a motion to open that item. Second. All right, that item is moved and seconded. That is open for discussion. So I'm going to preface this by reading. I don't know if I want to read the whole policy, but the policy procedure for placing tax acquired property out for bid. Pursuant to Maine State statute, if a tax lien mortgage together with interest and cost shall not be paid within 18 months after the date of the filing of the tax lien certificate in the registry of deeds, then said tax lien mortgage shall be deemed to have been foreclosed and the right of redemption to have expired, and upon request approved by the Board of Select Persons shall be sold by the town. Procedure is a request to place foreclosed property for sale by sealed bid is presented to the Select Board at a normally scheduled meeting. If the board authorizes the property to be placed for sale by sealed bids, ads will be placed in the newspapers around town and all other advertising locations and outlets by the Friday following the board meeting. Newspaper ads to run Friday through Sunday, abutting landowners will be notified. Once we have advertised for sale, the former property owner is sent a final letter stating that they have until the next board meeting to pay all taxes and fees associated with the property. This includes liens, legal fees, and advertising fees in accordance with our policy on redemption of foreclosed property. This letter will be sent using USPS track and confirm. At the second regularly scheduled board meeting from the date the properties were authorized to be sold, the bids will be reviewed and awarded. Bids are due by noon on the Thursday prior to this meeting. Bids will be opened by the town manager. The select board will award the property to the highest bidder so long as they meet or exceed the minimum bid price. The select board reserves the right to accept and or reject any or all bids in the best interest of the town. The winning bidder has 30 days to pay the town of Belgrade in full for the property. If this is not done, the bidder will forfeit their bid deposit and the party with the next highest bid is offered the property at their bid price, so long as it met the minimum bid requirements. If they decline, it will continue to be offered to the next highest bidder that has met the minimum bid requirements until payment in full for the bid is received. That being said, the board received 25 bids on the property. And the bid is for 1046 West Road in Belgrade, Maine. The former property owner responded to the final letter. And they did indeed pay all liens, legal fees, and advertising fees. All taxes and fees associated with the property have been satisfied as of today. So because of that, the property will revert to the former owner. They have fulfilled their obligation. So I would like to make a motion that the board thanks all of the bidders. And what we would like to do is we will deposit the cashier's checks into the town of Belgrade's account, and then we'll issue a check to each of the bidders with a notation that it is a return of their bid deposit for such and such a bid.
Second.
Unless the checks were made out like we talked about. Are any of them made out for town or the person who bid? You know, because I know when I bid before, I used to have a cashier's check made out for the town of
I
Belgrade
don't
or
remember.
myself. So
Yeah.
they could just send me the check back.
Mary, do you remember? We've got to stack them in the phone.
Yeah, I don't recall that we ever deposited the checks, that we just returned the checks back to the bidders.
So the problem with that, Mary, is if we require a cashier's check and it's made out to the town of Belgrade, then that cannot, it would need to be made to the town of Belgrade and to the person who owns the account, or that can only be deposited by the town of Belgrade.
Can the town of Belgrade sign off on the back of them and then they can
We'd
just,
have to sign them over, yes.
that's right, we could just sign them over. I just see that that's, we've never done that. We've never cut checks back. We've just given the checks back. And they were all cashier's checks? They were all bank checks?
Okay.
I think there were one or two, Mary, that were personal checks. But the majority of them were cashiers, like a bank check.
Yeah,
I know there was at least one personal check. There may have been two.
looks like there were two.
So I think the cleanest policy would be the one that I just stated, that we deposit all of the checks and those amounts, and then the town cuts a check.
Then we
back.
have a log, then we have a
clear
paper trail.
And we have a log, and there isn't a question of returning a check and it didn't get
Didn't get where it needed to
where it
be and they
needed to
can't.
be.
Then in the future, we can change our policy that says bank check made out to
Yes.
town of Belgrade or
Or-
The
the
bid,
person submitting it, because that
Yeah.
way,
right,
'cause right now, that bank check, they can't cash it.
Right. So that is just tied up. So does anyone, okay, so I made that motion. Second, all those in favor? No, actually, are there any further questions on that? Is there anyone who has any questions about the policy?
well, I guess the only question I have is, the two personal checks. Are we going to just return those, or are we going to deposit them and return them so there's a paper trail?
I would do the same thing all the way down for all 25 bidders.
That would be my preference, that we have a total
And then we would have a warrant that has every one of those people's names on it.
A
with
separate
check
warrant?
cut back.
separate order, yeah.
Yep, from, yep, I think
It's a
that
little
that's
more work for
clean.
us, but I think it's a paper trail.
Yep, I do too. And then 10 years from now, people won't wonder why we did what we did.
Yeah.
All right, seeing no further questions. Dan,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes,
Barbara?
Yes,
All right, 4 yeses. The property reverts to the former owner. The property is 1046 West Road, Belgrade, Maine. All right, so moving back to new business.
Stefan, just, Stefan. My brain thought there. The owner had requested that we advertise or put some notice out that he has retained the property so that people won't go on his. I think we just need to either do it or tell him we're not going to do it.
So my take on that is that we don't advertise anything for them.
I don't think that's our responsibility.
I think we can put the result of the decision on our Facebook page.
Right.
Town
We can put it
website.
on the website.
Yeah,
And
So we just need to let him know that we're not.
if he
We're
wants
not
to, if
honoring
he
his
wants to
request.
place an ad, then he could place an ad.
Right, I
He
don't
wants to come up
disagree,
here
I
and
just
post the
wanted to be
property,
clear.
and come up across the property, it's not that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. Is there anything in here that you need to shred?
I've redacted, so,
Okay.
personal reviews.
Pick up nothing, it's like,
So Laura, would you mind crafting email back to Mr. Waldman and letting him know, just CC the board on that that's the board's intention? Yeah. You?
It's the town next to owns that property, did you have to have a formal vote to sign it back over to him?
Yes.
I say, we technically own them, so we can't say it reverts back to him.
Right. Want to make that motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion. We have a formal vote saying that we're returning the property to the original owner.
As a result of his payment of past taxes and fees.
Yes.
Okay, I'll second.
Dan made the motion, Carol seconded. All those in favor?
Yes.
Barbara?
Mhm, yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes,
All right, 4 yeses. All right, do we want to tackle the fire department land search, cemetery lot sales as well, and then tuck the public works department down to the bottom?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so next up,
so these people were part of the one, okay.
okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is the cemetery lot sale. Shall we remember? Okay.
Yeah. I gave you updated information. Did you get that?
Yeah.
Yes, was there an original model? This one is, okay, Monday, okay, Tuesday, February 20. I was thinking, let's just get through. Okay, September 26, 2022, my husband, Corey and the cemetery committee, my husband, Robert McGlashing, and I are asking to purchase a plot in the Belgrade Cemetery. Both of his parents and most of his family are resting in there. Hoping to hear positive news about this soon. Thank you, Jody McGlashing. At the December 29, 2022, oh, sorry, I forgot to open this item. Make a motion, we open this item.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Now it's open for discussion. All right, at the December 29, 2022 Cemetery Committee, their meeting minutes reflect that the committee reviewed and discussed a request from non-residents Robert and Jody McGlashing of Norwood to be allowed to purchase cemetery lots in Pine Grove. Robert's parents, as well as other family members, are buried in Pine Grove. On a motion duly made by Bruce Galush and seconded by Bob Lewis, that request be approved by the cemetery committee and forwarded on to the select board for their approval. The motion was moved 4-0. I make a motion that the town of Belgrade authorize Jody McGlashing and her husband Robert to purchase the plot in the Belgrade Cemetery for the cemetery committee's recommendation.
Second.
Ooh, it's a fight to the finish. I don't know, eeny, meeny.
Who wants it?
Big one.
All right, there's no further discussion. Barbara?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses.
We'll get one assigned quicker than I have.
All right, now is Dan Kenzie on? Dan is Fire Department Land Search. We'll take a motion to open that item.
Second.
All right, moved by Carol, seconded by Barbara. That is open for discussion. And Dan, you're in the hot seat.
Yeah, I sent along in the email, a letter that the committee had kind of drafted up. Probably needs to be tweaked a little bit. Our thoughts are to send out some letters to local land and possibly even houses in the area, in that depot area, in the triangle piece. I mean, we're looking to be in that, as we discussed before, from like Morris Childs down through out past Hammond's a little bit, and then maybe down towards Kevin Hawes's log yard. So we're going to create a list, and we just want to draft a letter that you can see. The only thing is each property is probably going to be unique to the letter. So we're probably going to have to add different stuff to it just to make it fit for that piece of property. I just wanted you guys to be aware of that and to see if it was okay to be sending out to landowners, even though it's not for sale, but just see if they're interested in selling. Since we're struggling to try to find a piece of land.
Now, is this something, Dan, that you think could be tweaked a little bit to say I'm reaching out to homeowners and or landowners so that you could send the same letter, but it would encompass both?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just some of the lots might be a little too small that we might have to get both pieces of property, that are side by side. So we might have to tweak it that way. I know Carol's been came to the building committee meeting, so I mean,
Right.
we could work together and draft letters for individual properties. But yeah, I agree. We could do it a little bit. Most of it can be the same, but I think some of it at the beginning might have to be unique to each property.
Well, and this doesn't commit us to purchasing the property, so it's.
No,
If we needed to have two adjoining properties and one person's interested, that would allow us maybe a little more to go speak to the other person.
right. And we do have one that's come up recently, and now we got to give them a call. It'd be south of the railroad tracks. We got to look into it. I got to meet with them to see if the property will work. So we did have one recent interest in that.
Okay, so when I looked over this letter, Dan, I had just a couple of, little bits.
I'm sure you can find a lot. My writing's not the best.
No, I was
That's why
like,
you
"Nice
guys are
job."
looking at it.
So do you want me to read this into the minutes now? Or do you want to wait until you have it tweaked a little bit and then we can read it into the minutes and alert the public
Yeah,
that this is coming?
Yeah, if you guys want to tweak it or, and with Carol, and then she can bring it to the committee and we can go from there, and I will talk to that, new possibility that just came in south of the railroad tracks too, so.
Okay. And then if that's a go, you won't need the letter maybe.
Yeah. well,
Possibly.
So when are you hoping to have this sent out by, Dan? Like if we tweak it back at our next meeting in March?
Yeah, I mean, we're gone this far so far, so. This might not work, but we're trying something.
Well, and I think it's good to get it out there before town meeting so that people are just aware of it.
Yep.
So it's
agree.
not period at town meeting to
when we-
restate it, to let people know.
And we put out a lot of things about this, trying to get anybody interested at town meetings before and stuff. If you're interested in selling, let us know. And we really haven't got much response.
Nobody wants to leave Belgrade.
Right. And then not everybody sees that too. That's our hope, that maybe, with the water problems in the depot area, maybe some people want to, sell to get out of that situation, and we'd have to put the filter systems in the new station.
And Dan, when you were, I'm not sure if you worked with a member of the communications committee. I think at the last meeting, we talked about, or could have been in an email, possibly tweaking your article for the newsletter. Were you that reflected this, that a letter will be going out to homeowners, or were you able to do that? I know we've had one person assigned to certain people trying to help take the pressure off from writing those articles.
I don't think we got that into that one because we'd already written it, and we had to cut it back because of the amount of words or something the requirement was.
Oh, you were
What?
wordy, weren't you?
Yeah. We were trying to put a lot into it, so.
And then you were like, great, just take that all out.
Yeah, but we had previously put it into that newsletter,
Okay, so maybe.
a year or so ago.
As well, that comes up, closer to summertime.
Yep,
Don't forget to hit us up for that again. So if there isn't a piece of property, when you're contacted by that person, let's see if we can get a little bit more word out then too, before the summer folks start really arriving.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? All right, seeing none. All right, Dan, so we'll all pick this apart and give it to Carol, okay?
Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night. All right, so now we'll get to the Public Works Ad Hoc Committee. So the purpose of this tonight is not just appointments. We've yet to establish a charge for the committee. And I want us to do that so that there's not misinformation going out around town. Good morning. Nice job kind of corralling all of this. We kind of hit everything that we were looking for and
Ideas to help you get started. Thank you.
all right, so we'll take the motion to open this item.
So moved.
Second. All right, moved and seconded. It is open for discussion. So,
do we want to first develop a charge for the committee
yes,
using this list of directives?
yes.
We already have an overall description of what we want the committee to do, right? Didn't we determine that the last time?
We're
About,
kind of all throwing ideas out. We want to make sure cost is in there and location and labor and benefits. So we were kind of just bouncing ideas, but we didn't have it in an actual charge for the committee.
so we want to start out saying explore or explore and develop possibilities for
And this one.
public works needs. I think we wanted to start out with just something very broad.
Well,
Start out with something broad.
yeah, I mean, we just,
But I thought we had a good sentence from. I thought we had a really good sentence from the last time.
I think that was from didn't we have a good sentence from the Warren article? That said,
The warrant article,
the Warren article says, we are looking to.
the one that asks for the.
Explore, to move the money over in the event that we are
Right,
unable to find.
That's it. That's,
And that was the warrant article.
yes, that's the purpose.
So maybe that should be. the
That's what
first-
I'm thinking. Yeah, I just couldn't think of where that language was.
Yeah. But as far as, it looks like you've captured a lot of the stuff. And I'm sure as we work through it, we'll find more things that need to be included.
Right.
George made, his letter is really,
Yes, and I brought George's letter with me in case.
yeah. Knowing that you need to get some permits and realizing, oh my God, it's gonna take us all this time to do them. was, for me, was an eye opener as far as, you know, we are way behind time here, so it's, we need to get organized to get people working on it.
All right, so I'm gonna speak to, I spoke with the Warren Brothers. I went and met with both Terry and Travis, and asked them straight up if they would consider extending the contract for at least a year in the event that we didn't have other contractors to plow. So they talked about it amongst themselves and said that they would consider extending the contract for an additional year, that they thought the equipment that they had would be fine to get them through one more year with the town, which does take a little bit of the pressure off. They said, however, they did not want to consider an extension if the town was not doing due diligence to hire contractors, at least one contractor, if not two, to take over for them.
Right.
And one of the other things that they reminded me of was that the town did not have one plowing contractor until we combined the contracts under the Warren Brothers. And they did make the suggestion that it may be beneficial to the town to reconsider splitting that contract back into two. And the reason for that is how spread out we are, that it really is cumbersome for one contractor to do all of the area that we have.
Did they give you an idea of how they would split that?
They did. So what they did say, we'll kind of get to that when we get to how many we want on the committee and how that makeup would look. They said they would be happy to be at the first couple of meetings and give us, the town, the kind of skinny on how many trucks they use, what the sizes are, what else they think that we might need, how many workers we should have. And if we were to split the route, how, if it could be split a little bit more evenly, would be to pull in some of like the Depot Road and some things that we're calling it downtown Belgrade and put it back on, I think that's the north end. I'm very bad with that. Is that the north end? It's okay. I'm always like, I'm on the west road. So pushing a little bit more into north end so that the contract would be a little bit more equal if we had two contractors willing to each take a portion.
So one would take the North Belgrade and the Depot Road.
Yes. Yeah, so to kind of cobble those together so that it was a little bit more of an even split between the roads. And
So going back to, well, go ahead.
yes, so that is in here. So when we explore the options of local contractors, so purpose will be the warrant article, and then explore and develop possibilities for,
I have the warrant article. Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, that'd be great.
See if I can turn it so I can. To see if the town will approve the creation of a public works capital reserve account for the purpose of preparing for the possibility that outside contracted resources are not available in future years, and to appropriate $500,000 from undesignated funds to fund the account.
We can't use quite exactly that language, but that's,
yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's the general idea. But, you know, it seems to me that it's basically exploring two things. One is local contractors. Can we do this? Are there local contractors who are interested and available in doing this? Is one piece of it. And then the other piece of it is starting to explore the possibility of a public works department that we would have to run. And, you know, going along with that, you know, going along with looking at different contractors is also looking at other towns. You know, are there, can we you know, I know that there's been some exploring with other towns, but it seems like, you know, there ought to be some directive to explore possibilities with other nearby towns or with KB cog, you know, putting some kind of package together. Just so that piece doesn't.
What would KB cog do for a package?
Well, I don't know, I mean, KB cog is in, you know, they are the umbrella organization for municipalities, for towns in KB, in the area, Kendrick Valley. So they might, you know, know of other towns that would be
There might be a resource.
a
for the
resource,
committee,
yeah, there might be a
certainly.
resource, there might be other towns that are contacting them saying, yikes, we're not gonna have plowing in 2 years, do you have any ideas? It doesn't seem like it's the kind of thing that maybe municipal would get involved with, but no. No, just thought the KB cog might be a resource,
Yeah, that's what I
but
was.
it's basically exploring that, you know, it's exploring the two possibilities.
Well, I think first,
Continuing with independent contractors or setting up our own department.
right, I think we need to, I mean, I look at it that a portion of that committee will be working on contacting local contractors, contacting local towns, seeing if there's any possibility. Maybe someone doesn't want to plow all of it, but we could find two people that they won't plow it all, but they plow this portion or that portion, and we have two probably contracts. But at the same time, running parallel with that, you need to be looking for land and figuring out equipment and all of that, because if you spend all this time figuring out and say, gee, you know, 6 months later, we don't have anything, I don't think we have the time to go all the way on one. I think they need to be parallel tracks, and there's a
Right.
lot of figuring out, what are we gonna do? If we have, you know, if we can get Warren Brothers for another year, but where are we gonna place this? That's a lot of talking to people, what's available. You know, there's just a lot of things that need to be done in parallel. And building permits and some of that stuff, do we need to start working on those? Even though we may never use them, because the time it takes to get them set up.
Right, so it seems like on the directives list, it seems like exploring options of local contractors, that would be local contractors, discussion with Mount Vernon, that would also be, could also be local contractors.
Should be Manchester.
Well, and looking at Rome, could Rome possibly come down and take the village and some of that end of it, because
Right.
they have to come down and do part of it anyway? Would they take
They
a
only come
piece of
as
it?
far, they only come as far as, they do that little edge right up past your house, and they just do that little pickup.
They do dry point and all of that, right?
Just a little bit, I follow dry point.
Oh, you plow dry point?
They just do that little right by Wings Hill, and they do a little pickup.
Oh, that little,
Half the time I end up on it because they don't.
well, if they had the, I mean, would they consider, I mean, I think a lot of it's dollar price, would they consider doing more? If they cut, you know,
I doubt it, because it's a long run to come all the way down with a big truck to do it.
so they're plowing that now with a small truck.
Pick up.
Okay. Yeah.
Well,
The question is it
wouldn't have
worth
to
their
be-
while to come if we pay enough?
The discussion wouldn't have to be limited to Mount Vernon, it could be
Mount
Area
Vernon or
towns.
Rome
Yeah,
or
all your adjacent, you should do all you need.
all your adjacent towns,
Yeah,
Smithfield,
I was just
Sydney.
gonna say Smithfield, because the other piece could be if
is that for years,
there are
no
local
offense, it's done
contractors.
with the Smith, whoever did the Smithfield
Right, that's what I
contract.
was just gonna say is, so it could be that same split.
Yeah.
The north end, if Smithfield agrees to plow into Belgrade. And then we have a contractor from the other side who agrees to plow.
Yeah, I don't know who's doing,
Well, that's just it. I mean, a lot of these little towns are using independent contractors, so contacting the town's not gonna do it.
right, you got contact.
You're gonna have to find out who their contractor is and contact them.
But I mean, I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's
find
what
that
the
out from
committee
the town.
needs to be, having 2 or 3 people working that piece of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
we
don't
need
have
to get the
solve-
committee there so we can have bodies doing this.
I think you're gonna find from the town, let's say Manchester, we can ask them. But
Yeah.
like, I think if they've got their own public works department, most of them, It's like Sydney, they aren't gonna.
No, Cindy won't, I've already kind of got it around.
As public works, they're already
Yeah.
using their equipment, beating their equipment, they're not gonna want to take on more miles, it's just more maintenance on the
Right.
equipment.
Right, like I said, Manchester, my understanding is in this, almost the same boat we're in. I don't think their contractor is gonna renew his contract with them, and they're drawing, last time I knew they were drawing zero, I haven't talked to my friend that's, and, you know, it's on the select board down there, so.
And Lorna, didn't you already talk to a lot of, did you talk to contractors or towns? You gave us a,
It was mostly independent contractors. There's a list of some of the folks I've contacted or have on a list. I think there's only a couple I didn't reach out to yet.
And where were these contacted? Because I had spoken to Jason probably a month and a half ago, and no one had contacted him at that point.
Yeah, I spoke to him in my office on it, and that was a short while ago.
Because he did say that he might consider something with another contractor, but
Right, we did, yeah, I didn't discuss that with him. I just knew that he was in that type of work and said, you ought to do it. Why don't you do it? Aren't you interested? No.
Well, and it might be that some of these have said no, are not willing to do it all, but they might do a piece.
True.
right.
Because we haven't offered that to them.
Some of the bigger ones are definitely, they were pretty adamant. They turn people away. They have too much.
They have
to
too
do.
much, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
George,
Just so you know, it cuts the other way too. Some contractors that I've worked with in the past in other parts of the state don't want a small number of road miles. They want a large number of road miles. And so, for example, for Merced County, you have several towns going to contract together to get up the road miles, to make it worthwhile. For example, a contractor invests in the additional equipment,
Mhm.
whereas for one town, it's not worth it. Their the economics don't work out for them. So, you know, for example, if this committee looked into Rome, Belgrade, and Smithfield contracting all together, the road miles may be large enough to be quite lucrative to a larger contractor, whereas they're not interested in just doing Belgrade alone.
Mhm.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be looked at from all those angles, and we have to figure out. What are we willing to pay a road mile? You know, I mean, 10, 11, I mean, how much do we have to pay to make it attractive? So if we pay, pick a number, 10,000 a road mile, seems like a huge number, but that may not be a huge number at all. And then it's a question of, are we willing, are we gonna do our own, or are we gonna have to pay what the go? You know, I mean, we really, we're not paying a lot, a road mile, I think.
When you're bidding, you don't put out how much I'm gonna pay you a mile, that's the whole point of bids.
Right. The other thing that we need to look into is see if we can increase, but the committee should be on these state aid roads to see if we can increase that state aid per mile, but they're not even coming close to even, they're not even covering a third of what it costs us per mile to plow and sand these state aid roads.
so Lorna, after one of our last meetings where this was discussed, that did go to me DOT, correct? That
Yes,
question,
yeah.
and they came
And
up with what the
yeah,
local
I sent that
roads
out to
were,
all of you.
and
I
that
have
that
to
was
dig
per
back to find it.
contract.
I can make a note to find it and send it to you, Bruce.
Okay,
Because they were
Jack
adamant
too, I
about it.
think Jack was interested in that too.
Yeah, because I think it came back as, they don't pay so much a mile, it's so much state aid. It just goes into the general fund and
Yeah,
it was a weird.
it's a losing.
Yeah.
For us, that's, you know. That's why, you know, I'm not really interested in plowing 27 or Route 11 because it's been a losing for the town for years and you're just gonna lose more.
Well, maybe the state's not willing to pay what we feel we would need to have to plow it. I mean, I don't want to plow it. I mean, from what I've heard, nothing we want to do, but if we say, hey, we'll plow it for 12,000 a mile, you want to pay it? And the state's gonna say no. I'm guessing.
My understanding, Route 27, they'll pay 12,000 per lane per mile.
12,000 per lane per mile,
I think I have the rates.
so that's 24,000 a mile.
We don't need to get involved in the
No.
details now.
No,
No,
I
that's-
was gonna
that's-
find that.
right. Yeah, we
We're
need
just
to,
trying to get the directive. We're not gonna solve the problem tonight.
no, we're not. We're not,
We'll let the committee solve the problem. They can have the fun, but.
right,
George is gonna form a plowing company, and start plowing for it.
right.
It'll take, it'd be pretty poor service with my snow blower.
No, you get to go buy 5 trucks. With your pocket change.
Yeah.
Does anybody have? I'm gonna drag this directive out of us.
Well, the director, I'm looking at what's been written down here, and I have no problem with using that as a base. for the
I mean, I
directive.
think if we take this
Yeah.
and give this to the committee to start working on, we've got.
And I think I'll let the committee look at it, and they can make suggestions to what needs to be
Right.
added, or
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a two-pronged approach.
Right,
Can we hire independent contractors to do it? And what's involved in
Yeah.
setting up.
So,
our-
yeah.
And those
Let-
two,
you get enough
those
people
two
on
need
the-
to work
let- Yeah, I
simultaneously.
say, not committee member, and whoever's the chair of the committee could say, all right, you guys work on this portion.
right,
Work on this, we'll work on this portion, instead of everybody trying to work on everything all at once.
Right,
right,
Let
absolutely.
them figure. out
Exactly.
How they wanna work it.
Yeah.
I don't wanna micromanage them, just, we know what needs to be done.
Right.
We've got a pretty good list there, I think that's fairly good comprehensive list.
Well, and the only thing is part of the reason for putting this in the newsletter and the town warrant was to give folks who may not watch these meetings the chance to sit on this committee. So, and the intention was that the newsletter was already going to be in people's mailboxes, but the newsletter's been held up because the editor of the newsletters had some stuff come up, so she's a little bit behind. So that's not even gonna go out until probably next week.
We can add people to the committee, so, you know, I'm sure they won't.
We have a good number
They get
already.
Another 4
Yeah.
or 5.
I mean,
And you don't want too large a committee, because
Well,
then it gets
I think
unwieldy.
at the beginning, as an ad hoc, I mean, George could speak maybe different than I would feel, but I think to get started, I think. I'm saying if you went with 10, then that we could do subcommittees
Mhm.
to start doing other stuff.
So I was leaning towards 15.
You know, I'm
So
at
there
least
could
10,
be
so
a
you can do
working group doing
subcommittees to
this
do
and
stuff.
working group doing this and a chair,
Yes,
town manager corralling it all.
yeah,
Well, like I said, we gotta start, I mean, it's not gonna hurt to
Right,
set up and get it started.
yeah,
That
exactly.
newsletter out there, more people, you may not have anybody else that wants to do that.
Right,
Yeah, I mean, if we
Well,
have
I
8 or
can't get
10,
enough
if
phone
we have
calls
8
from people
or
that
10
need to be in
people.
town. And I'm not even out and about, I'm
We
like,
couldn't
dang.
get them, we couldn't get them to lunch, my chair, for my seat here, so you may get some people, you may not.
And shouldn't there be some staff members who, like Corey, wouldn't Corey automatically be a member? I mean, I know he's applied, but wouldn't he be?
I would think he and Jason both.
Yeah,
Well,
automatically.
Jason, I did ask, and he said, well, nobody asked if I would be part of it, and I said, well, I think, you know, and I hate for us to assume, but I assumed as road commissioner that it would be important for you to be.
The
part
road
of that.
commissioner and Corey is maintenance, I say we just appoint them.
Right. I mean, that's a
So,
I mean, Corey submitted an application, so that's fine, but when I saw that, I thought, well, wouldn't he be on it anyway by
right,
virtue
He should.
of his position in town?
And because, like I said, there's something here too, that some public works include transfer station. It probably wouldn't even hurt to have
And
the manager from transfer station be part of it too, because I think a lot of that maintenance and a lot of repairs, and it's all gonna have to get grouped. If we end up with public works, we don't want it, we know we don't want it.
right,
right,
We're gonna have to group everything together to make it efficient enough, try to use it for everything.
right, because of having to employ personnel around.
right, well, and I don't know if you all know this, but the transfer station used to be under the road commissioner's authority.
years ago.
So years ago, Morris Childs was road commissioner and he maintained and ran the transfer station.
Buckfield is set up the same way.
So,
It didn't work out, so that's why it's not that way.
okay, so do we think 15 seems like an appropriate
I would
number?
probably.
Yeah,
yeah, you get it.
I just cap it at that. If we get that many, great. If we don't.
If you look at this list that we have so far. we take
And
this
Jack
out.
Sutton has decided he does not want to be on this. Did I see that today?
Correct.
Yes.
See, and I really wanted Jack on there. Okay, so 15 members. And then one of the things that I want to make sure is that the board is being updated.
When we say up to 15 members, just so people don't think,
Max,
Yeah,
up to maximum.
maximum of 15 members, just so people don't think that nothing can happen unless the.
wait till you get that many, right?
And then 15 members plus the town manager as chair and as a non-voting member. Would that be appropriate
Is, I'm sorry, with what?
as the
I don't
chair?
know if the town manager is chair of the committee.
Well, I wonder, because a lot of times you set up a committee and then you pick the chair, but we want one person to be the central person who's corralling the information from each of the subcommittees.
It's
Yeah.
gonna be, it's gonna be a big job. I think it would be hard to find a volunteer who would be.
Who'd
Be
take
a
the whole
volunteer who would
thing.
wanna pull this all together.
Chair and a co-chair.
Maybe let the committee get together and get
Yeah.
us.
Usually a
Let's
chair is
let
a
the-
voting member.
Right, and then the chair will
I
end up
mean,
reporting everything.
Right. I know when we started the transfer station committee, the town manager, you know, because that was, we started out as a pretty good sized committee. And the town manager was obligated by the board to be at every meeting. And they, you know, because there was, you know, it was a ton of office work that had to be done that this couldn't do.
Well, then would this even be a voting committee? It's an advisory committee to the select board, so there wouldn't necessarily be votes taken because they're not going to decide.
No, but
No, but they're
they,
going to decide on their
they have to
recommendations.
decide their
Yeah.
recommendations to bring back to the board. You gotta be able to whittle some of your recommendations
Right.
down by voting to bring it to you, or we'll never get
You
any.
never get anywhere with that.
That's the whole idea of having an ad hoc
I
committee.
mean, I'd set it up just like a transfer station or anything else,
You know,
you know, you take, they pick a chair. And the town manager is the one that organizes all the stuff in the office. And you know, if they need this, they need these phone numbers, they need this, they go through the town office.
I mean, what it was for when we first started, that, I think it wasn't Dennis, I can't remember who the town manager was, but they were our secretary until we got all the studies done. And the other thing you may want to look into is also, like with the transfer station, when we did this whole big change, we paid for a company to, went out and did we kind of went out, did a study, and they gave us like 6 or 7 options to go for the transportation, station, go where we are now. Actually more recycling, and it was curbside, it was, there was all kinds of different options that we went with.
I don't know if we can find somebody to do that with us, but it's basically a feasibility study.
Yeah, but,
And that's, and if we can find somebody that can do that, I wouldn't have a problem. We don't have, as long as we don't have to spend $50,000 or $60,000 to do it.
right, that's where KB called.
Yeah,
Yeah,
TV cog.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
I
what we
guess
get.
my concern is if we, if you think of feasibility study, that usually takes a chunk of time. And I think we need to be working in parallel at the same time.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
my concern, is that we don't,
The transfer station one took 3 months,
yeah,
and that was through.
In the meantime, if subgroup that's talking to contractors can do
right,
their
needs to be
thing.
right.
Another subgroup that's looking for a place to put this place can do their thing and.
And the other subgroups can be looking at the staffing that would be involved.
So, and the other thing, that I want to make sure is that, subgroups doing things, everybody has the same information that they're going to the individual folks for. I don't want anyone really gonna ask anyone questions or coming up with their own answers. So we need to be very clear with when the committee is formed, what the subcommittees are doing, because if they're going to be speaking on behalf of the town of Belgrade, that's a lot of authority to give folks that aren't sitting on the board and responsible to the voters.
Right, it could be that Lorna might have to do some.
To do some-
To do a lot of the administrative work.
And I would say
Good
get.
laughing.
Well, and I would say too, if we're reaching out, make sure that we're taking notes or documenting, everything. So that it's easy to follow what everyone has done and.
Right, I mean, there could be a page of questions, there could be a
I
standard
mean,
list
you don't want
of questions.
5 different people on one subcommittee asking questions to a town of the town. You
Right,
gotta pick a person and you gotta be
Right.
consistent, so.
Right.
But again,
well, and
that's,
you don't need this committee
Committee needs to
calling
do.
the town of Smithfield, and this committee calling the town of Smithfield, and this committee calling the town of Smithfield. There
Right.
needs to be some,
right,
get your information, find out what you
Right.
need, and then have
But
a
then
meeting with the
everybody
town
has the
one-on-one
same-
if you need it.
Then
That's your
everybody
chair,
has
the
the
chair
same.
does that.
The
structure.
chair,
the chair.
Has the same roads.
right, so. There needs to be some,
You just need a real good active chair, you need a real good active chair.
yeah, do.
Is there anything else that we noticed on here? I think under personnel, I had added the cost of benefits. Because if it requires additional, when we are doing a cost spreadsheet, if it would involve potentially additional employees. And under the winter maintenance or summer maintenance, I added sweeping.
Do we give benefits or allow part-time employees to have benefits?
I believe permanent part-time.
Yes, from-
I guess in my head, I'm thinking there may be some, because I think we're gonna have to pay a decent rate for the drivers, these plow trucks. And they may not be the ones who want to cut brush and dig ditches and stuff, You may have some people who are willing to be a wintertime employee and not a summertime employee. But in order to attract that person, do we need to give them benefits?
That you probably have to look into like RSU 18 and see what they do for the bus drivers. But that's just a part-time job.
So it's just, I think it's one of those things we have to look at is if we're gonna pay a big chunk salary. That we need to make sure that that person wants to be the summer maintenance person.
Oh,
Sure,
my
you can have
goodness.
my hands
just
scratched.
have to find a company like Pike Industries. Because they do their paving and everything else in the winter, in the summer, and then lay off most of their truck drivers, the dump truck drivers. So
Yeah, I mean, there are,
I don't know if their benefits continue over while they're off for the winter, and if they are, some of them may want to come work.
right, I mean, that'll be a piece this committee's gonna look at is how do you attract people and give them benefits when they don't want to be the summertime employee? Because that may be where we end up.
Right, that's basically RSU 18 in the summer months, bus drivers aren't driving buses. And they're still getting their benefits, they're still getting their health insurance and so on.
Right, so maybe that's a piece that we can attract them. And then in the summer, some of that summer maintenance stuff, we're not gonna be paying the same rate that we pay for the plow driver. So we can do that with maybe your regular part-time help. So
But again, that's
that's the
what the
committee
committee's
needs to
gotta
look
figure
at.
out.
Right,
We just need to get it going and get the meeting.
Okay, so, but we're all in agreement that we need two sides. We need two sides that are gonna meet in the middle. So one side needs to be talking to contractors, one needs to be figuring out parcels of land that might be a possibility, where it needs to be located. And I think George brought up a good point. George, was you right? You talked about the property that we own by the transfer station.
Right.
George.
Yeah, I mentioned that too.
George.
Years ago.
Yeah.
I said, I think it was you too.
Both sides of the transfer station, you get the stuff in the woods and you get the old landfill.
You can't do much on the old landfill, but the stuff on the left-hand side, that land on the left-hand side is 85 acres there.
So you had brought up the point of the property that we already owned around the transfer station.
Town owned,
Right,
Yeah,
and that's
a lot of
always,
acreage,
Mhm.
slope steep, but. groundwater's already contaminated, so if you had to spill oil,
Well, it's a reality, right?
Right,
you know. A question, if I may.
yes.
Am I reading the Gantt chart correctly? And maybe this is a question for you, Lorna, that this committee needs to complete its work by August?
This was a timeline that Jack put together a couple of months ago, maybe it was, that was probably a couple
January, I
of
think,
months
yeah.
ago.
Yeah, it's not gonna be done by August.
So we're almost into March and
I would think by August, though, we should, if the committee meets
Should have
at
some.
least a couple times a month, we
contractors.
should have some decent information to bring back to the board in a 6-month time frame. So then we can see
Especially when we get close to
possibly,
budget.
right, what's actionable and what's,
My only point being, I think a deadline would be good to.
I think we
part of the,
definitely need a
guidance
deadline.
You're giving this committee.
Yeah, timeline, definitely a strong timeline.
I mean, I think Jack's timeline is there. It may need to stretch out a little, but we
Yeah.
can't wait until,
Well, this timeline includes construction and stuff like
Yeah.
that, which, as I understand, won't be the responsibility of the committee.
No, in construction, you aren't gonna have anything, it'll be,
It's, yeah, 2 years.
it'll be 2 years before you'd have built.
Permanent and everything.
We had to buy equipment, it's gonna be sitting outside for a while, if we can't get an existing building.
Right.
yeah,
see, and that's a thought in my, that's a crowd that sticks to me, because I don't want us purchasing equipment and then we're storing it outside, because then we're just asking, I would rather we purchase a few big Quonset huts to get stuff undercover versus storing it outside. It just seems like,
I mean.
well, and I think the committee will work and say, where are we at? What do we, I mean, that's why we need but I think we need a deadline to
But
make
I
it.
don't think all towns still have all their equipment inside. either.
No.
If you go to the city of Augusta, I guarantee all their trucks. are
Chesterfield,
inside.
though.
Yeah.
Like they only have 2 days, they have outside, downstairs.
Yeah, well,
We'll deal with that when the time comes,
Yeah.
if it comes, so.
Okay, so are we approving the list here as
yes,
directed?
you go, girl.
I make the motion.
Second.
are we going, just a question, are we gonna ask Corey and Jason to be
Members automatically.
members automatically?
Yeah, I just, say it's like.
So we either need to put Corey to the side, or we need to add Jason to this list, however we want to do it now.
I think Corey should be on the list.
Okay, then we need to add, not Corey, I'm sorry, Jason.
They're both taxpayers, so I think they both should be voting members if you're gonna do that also.
And I think we should have a board member on there.
I do as well.
I'm willing to work on it if no one else wants to.
Well, and I'd be willing to work on it too, but initially when the time you were saying was, if we meet at 3 o'clock, I was like, well, then nobody.
Oh,
who
it's a
works can
question
do
of,
that.
Board member and town manager wouldn't be going with us, so.
yeah,
Right,
I don't mind. I'm stretched so thin that it's fun.
you still look for it, Carol?
I'm still willing to work on it. I think we need to work on it and meet often. It's not oh, we'll work this month and come back next month. It's got to be, let's,
I think it's gonna be every couple of weeks anyway.
at least,
And are you comfortable, Lorna, if, saying this is what needs to be accomplished before the next meeting from each of the folks?
If they can do it during the day, we're here.
That would be
One or two, she-
it's probably,
that would be helpful.
Shoot it and do what she's gotta do.
There are a couple folks on here that I'm not sure have the leeway to come in the middle of the day. But that's something, I guess the committee can actually work out amongst themselves.
I mean,
in
if
the
you have
first
some,
meeting.
if you have subcommittees, some people probably can work during the day on what they're doing.
Yeah, and then,
Then have another meeting some night where they all can come back together. Then do a report.
Or you do like a subcommittee meeting, one meeting a month, and then you do a regular full meeting, another. Week.
We'll let them figure that out. Friday.
Okay, so are we voting to accept the directives?
Yes.
Accept the directives?
All right, so I make a motion that we use the directives as the baseline for the charges for the Public Works Ad Hoc Committee.
Barbara,
I already did.
So I second it.
nice,
Oh, you said second it. Okay, all those in favor, Dan,
yes,
Carol.
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
all right, 3 yeses.
and all of the people on, that want to be on this committee, can we just do this, read their names and do it as a group?
And we, yeah, read it, and that's why I'm wondering if we should have, not have Corey be on. That we're not nominating Corey because we don't have the paperwork for Jason.
Yeah.
We can add Jason later, doesn't matter.
Huh?
Or we can add Jason now.
If we have employees that we're requiring to be part of this committee, do we need to name them as this committee application, or can they be, there's,
I think the appointed members of the committee should be, and then we also will have the road commissioner and the facilities manager
Right.
and a select board
And Carol.
member and the town
They
manager.
don't, you don't have to have.
Yeah, you don't have to have one of these to be on.
and do we need the transfer station
Yes.
manager there as well?
I think
So
so.
transfer
Would
station,
like to,
road commissioner.
At
like
least,
to,
initially.
especially if we're looking at that property over there as a
Right.
possible site.
Yeah, that's
I
right, we
think
should.
I think it's a,
George, don't you want to fill out a form?
even if you don't want, it, you can
Now,
be the devil's advocate.
you said you would
Yeah.
if we were not like,
I'm gonna think about it some more. Part of the problem is I'm essentially gone the month of May. In addition to my reservations about Public Works Department. And whether it's cost effective.
Well, we all have reservations.
Yeah, I mean, no one is gung ho on this.
see,
It's
and I
just-
think that that's what George needed to hear.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he was, when he and I spoke about this, he said, if you go back and look at some of the meetings, Melanie, you were in the minority. And I was hoping that that was not the case, and I did say to Lorna that if this select board were to ever push forward a department that the townspeople adamantly stated they did not want, that I would not support that decision, and I would step down from the board, and I would myself start a petition to override that decision. Because that's not what we're here for. We do what's in the best interest of Belgrade, but we also need to do what is the right thing for the taxpayers. And I think if the reality is that the determination is that we do need to create a public works department, and it is, we look at feasibility, I think we could do it, long-term, stability. I'm not sure about that portion, which is part of what this needs to be, but I think if the determination was made that that was the avenue to go, we would have the townspeople's support behind us. But
We hope so.
I would,
I mean, none of us are thrilled to death about putting a water district in this town. either, but
Yeah,
Right.
right. But what's the?
and
Point where,
But I think
But we need to do
people
diligence.
need to understand that if we don't at least explore it, everyone gets to snow blow the street
I
in
was
front
gonna
of their
say
house.
exactly. if we don't have a contractor when it needs to be done,
Done,
guess what? Everybody's gonna be
We're-
staying home.
Or
Yeah,
we're all
because-
snowplowing somehow.
yeah,
We're gonna go, they give big rollers and rollers.
Yeah. like they used to, right?
I'm not replacing any of them.
Yeah.
neither are we.
Money doesn't matter, right?
The
Well,
one
And
brothers
and
I
that's
are-
the issue is, what's the cost what's it gonna cost us to do this, and what's it gonna cost us to make it attractive to someone? And,
Or to two sons. The ones did actually have a good point where they said if you had two folks doing it, they would need to. The best case scenario would be for them to each run their own crews and collaborate on things in the middle, because when you have two folks who are used to being the boss, to have them. Working together may not always be the best thing, so they would need to. Figure out the overlap, if there needs to be some, but they
Yeah,
each. made
all
a
right.
firm
I don't
course.
have a problem if we can find two contractors like we used to either. It's just, it got to the point where our contractor for down here no longer did it anymore. We couldn't find another contractor. Fortunately, they stepped up and said, okay, we'll do the whole town.
I mean, I will say, as far as power contractors, we are probably, in this area, we are probably the highest. We pay the most for a power contract in the area.
I think
Roll.
Wayne comes pretty close now.
Yeah, yeah, well, I mean, I'm saying Mount Vernon,
The same.
in our, the towns that touch us, Mount Vernon, Rome.
I district.
Our district, but we're probably 3 times more per mile what they are.
Okay,
So now-
I just came up with the term for Corey and Jason and Ken. It's ex officio. They are on the committee ex officio, which means because of their position, because of their role.
Okay, so now Travis and Terry said that they would be willing to participate in the first couple of meetings as we sort of establish the charge. So would they also be ex officio members?
I would think so for town.
Well, they're not town employees.
They're not town employees.
Oh,
They're-
Travis,
they're
oh,
independent
oh,
contractors.
Oh,
I would say that
There may be
we just haven't
experts
taken
or
on
advisors.
they would have to be appointed.
Can't they be?
But they do
Advisors.
not want to be there the whole time.
Consultants.
They say,
Yeah.
Melanie, we don't have any.
Consultants.
Well, I mean, they can choose.
The consultants. of the
Yeah, they can be
committee.
consultants.
Yeah, because they could give you probably a pretty good list of contractors.
Well,
Right.
and the other thing I said to them is who knows what the town of Belgrade needs to maintain our roads, except the people who've been doing a great job
Right,
doing it for
exactly.
all of
Right.
these years.
Yeah,
Right.
I would put them as consultants and not as full committee members.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. We'll give them a new title.
George has a question.
George?
Just to clarify, earlier on, Barbara brought up, that one of the tasks would be to see if there's an opportunity to collaborate with some of the surrounding towns. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
So that'll be a task of this committee.
Yes.
It's on my head scratchings for Lorna.
I can see that well.
Probably as part of the same subcommittee that's looking for contractors,
Right, yeah.
because obviously a lot of these towns are gonna have the contractors versus their own public work.
Okay. All right, seeing that we're through that part, I would like to make a motion that we appoint Carl Cook, Craig Alexander, Keith Alexander, John Skinner, Kevin Haas, Michael Harrington, David Stevens, Thomas Dresniewski Jr. as members of the Public Works Ad Hoc Committee.
I second.
I'm sure everybody checked the box. Further discussion? Seeing none. Dan,
Yes,
Carol,
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes,
All right, 4 yeses. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, oops, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Nope, hold on.
And then shouldn't we have
Eight.
a motion?
Because I had Jason stuff.
Shouldn't we have a motion for the town employees to be ex officio?
That's where I was going next.
Oh, okay. All right, go
Okay,
ahead.
so all those are the elected members of the planning of the Public Works Committee. I would like to make a motion that Carol Johnson be the select person liaison. Lorna Nichols be the town manager and the corrallo of the information. The transfer station
Last
manager,
two up.
the road commissioner, and the facilities maintenance manager. Ken Scano, Jason Stevens, and Corey Alexander. Just to name those three as ex officio members of the committee.
Second.
Okay, then moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Barbara,
yes,
Carol,
Yes.
Dan?
yes.
All right, 4 yeses.
All right, so how many voting members do we have right now?
Right now, we have 8.
Will be broken into other.
Yeah, but I was thinking that I would have Corey and all them be voting members.
I said Kenny can't because he's not a taxpayer. Corey and Jason could be.
Corey and
members. That was a recommendation.
You
I
wouldn't,
made.
we're elected official,
Right,
you know, so yeah, you wouldn't be in town manager, I just will not have a town manager.
Right.
But I think we ought to let them be voting members. Corey.
Especially where
Let them be.
where Corey's an employee, but he's also a taxpayer in the town, and he
Yeah.
wanted to be on the committee. So I think if he's gonna be on, even as an employee, or he should be able
They
to
should be able
be
to
a,
vote.
be a voting member.
But the other thing is, we do not want to give the impression that this committee is not entirely independent, especially if a public works committee would be developing facilities maintenance and road commissioner positions if we
It's
create.
Jill would be, because he has right as a
Introduction.
taxpayer to be on that committee, not as an employee.
Everything.
I mean, I just assume let them vote, but like I said, no.
Yeah, Laura and I not vote, the other three will.
I'm not.
Yeah, you know, Kenny's a Kenny's a non-resident, he won't be a voter, so you don't have that department sway in it. Lorna can't vote because she's a town manager, and Carol can't vote because she's a elected official.
Should be voting, we all vote, so
Right,
I think you ought to let Corey and.
Jason,
And if Corey felt that there was a conflict, he could abstain from
Right.
the vote.
right.
And so that's really good too, so people see,
Especially if
Right.
you use him on the
The
committee looking for
transparency.
contractors,
right?
Yeah.
because if we get a contractor, it's not gonna affect his department.
Right,
Yeah, I just want to be careful how we present stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, because I feel like we've all given our word that we're exploring it, but it's not a done deal.
Mhm.
So. Okay.
I'd
so
like it to
then
be an undone deal.
So 10.
I hope the contractor.
I'd like it to be an effort in futility.
Absolutely.
All right, and then I'll make a third motion that we have Travis Warren and Terry Warren. If we can email them an application, or when they come in with their next thing, give them an application to fill out and name them as consultants to the Public Works Ad Hoc Committee.
But do they need to fill out an application if they're just consultants? They're
If
not,
they're
they're not gonna,
consultants.
they're just providing information. I don't think that they would need to fill out an application.
I wouldn't bother with it, they're only gonna be for a couple of meetings.
You were the one who was like, they're gonna fill out one of these.
So. I thought they were gonna,
He did.
I thought they were gonna be on.
All the time.
But if they're gonna be there for
This-
times, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right. And we may
Then we
very
need
easily
those
find there's some more, couple more people who want to come onto the committee.
well, and there's room there, and that's what I wanted, was I didn't want for us to pre-select and then get the information out to the whole town. Where we're inviting them to participate and then being like, no, just kidding.
Well, if we know how many more slots are available, put that in the newsletter.
But the newsletters, that's a done deal.
Okay.
So there's no, we can't change the order, but
You can
If
put it on
we
the
have-
electric board.
if we have more than
Put it on
5
Facebook.
people that put in an application and want to be, then we have 5 more seats right now. So, because that would give us 10 voting members if we have both Jason and Corey as voting members, that gives us 10. So if we had 5 more,
Mhm.
then that would be
Yeah, I mean, that's-
plenty.
We just put it out there that we're looking for 5 more people.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
All right, do we need to vote on Travis and Terry as consultants? No,
No,
No, because they'll have other people they may bring as a
right. I mean, they don't
consultant.
want to have,
Yeah.
somebody from Katie Cog come in.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's no different, keeping
They may
all
want-
over our lawyer, using them as a
Yeah.
consultant, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all right. Have we beat this one up enough
I
tonight?
think so.
I'm like, I don't want to get too excited because the transfers, the town manager's report could derail us all, but. Okay, so Lorna, if you have any trouble here, let me take a picture of my hand scratchings before I
Okay.
send it over to you, just in case you have any questions. I can be like, hold on, let me blow that up. That's what I meant. Right, you mind, I'm gonna
Just
send.
one or two copies.
Pass that one to them, please. Okay, well, moving right along. Let's get to the ones.
Good night.
Thank you, George.
Right.
Good night. Think about it, there's 5 more spaces.
you can call us in the morning, George.
You can zoom in, okay?
You can be the consultant.
Yeah. Probably need his guidance if they're looking at building permits and some of that stuff.
Oh, see, the problem is there's a new endangered species now, and it's gonna, that could end up causing a lot of problems. It's, because there's not gonna be any, you're gonna have a study done if you're gonna do any type of clearing the building in a wooded area from April 1st until freeze out.
we just make sure if it gets put over there, we just clear it. One ahead of time, and just,
I mean, I don't know where it's from with that, I know that just got brought up at a meeting last week. So.
Okay,
permits on happen, but you make a decision anyway.
No.
You can't start doing UV studies and permits.
You gotta have an engineer. You gotta have an engineer.
right.
You gotta have it engineered, you gotta know where it's going.
Yeah, but he certainly could come and talk to the committee about what is going to be needed in time frames. And, you know, with that part of the committee that's gonna be looking at building. If we need to do it.
Who is that, Carol?
Huh?
Who is that?
We're talking about George should be a consultant.
Oh,
that-
George.
It takes a while to get the stuff done, but he could come and say, keep in mind,
He can give you a timeline. of what
and give a
it's-
timeline of what you need to do, so that it's a realistic projection.
All right,
Okay,
so make a motion that we open the warrants.
so moved.
Moved and seconded. All right. First vote. Not here. No. She gave me my little thing that says Melanie with the ones, there was only two in there.
Those are in addition, those are all in one.
She usually gives me a little stuff to go through regular. All right, so payroll warrant number 18 in the amount of $16,776.19. I'll make that motion.
Second,
Second, is there any discussion? Saying none. Dan?
Yes.
Carol?
yes,
Barbara?
Yes,
All right, 4 yeses. Next, we have BMV warrant number 19 in the amount of $2,468.50. Make that motion.
second,
Moved in second. Is there any discussion? Saying none. Barbara?
yes,
Carol?
yes,
Dan?
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses. Then we have AP warrant number 20.
oh, that's the regular one.
Okay, I'm gonna hold AP warrant 20 until we get through the other two, and then we'll give us that one for discussion. So payroll warrant number 21, the amount of $16,908.36. I'll make that motion.
Second,
Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Dan?
Yes.
Carol?
yes,
Barbara?
yes,
All right, 4 yeses. All right, then we have Bureau of Motor Vehicles in the amount, warrant number 22 in the amount of $2,100. I'll make that motion.
second,
Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Barbara?
yes,
Carol?
yeah,
Dan?
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses. All right, now AP warrant number 20. Total amount is $74,215.74. That is looking for discussion. So I wanted to, as a point of clarification for folks, so Belgrade Dragon Masters, we issued a check to for $2,170.36. If anyone asks, that is a donation from the town of Belgrade to support Belgrade Dragon Masters. And that is snowmobile excise that is collected, and that helps them to maintain the trails that they have open for things besides just snowmobiling.
is that enough forever?
It is in the forever article, perpetuity, yeah. But I was like, well, in case somebody doesn't know why we're doing that. And under Belgrade Mechanical Services, we've got skid steer repairs and skid steer repairs. Is this the same one? And I think we had asked at one point to see how much per year we were paying, because we went to owning our own because it was supposed to be more beneficial than us renting. But we seem to have thousands of dollars of repairs to these skid steers.
Just one, you're not paying for one right now, just for general maintenance, when it's on warranty.
It's still under warranty, so this $2,000 is on that same skid steer.
That's the one that had the hole in the
Uh-huh.
fuel tank.
And now what are these repairs?
I think that is part of the whole in the fuel tank, I think.
And we paid the hole in the fuel tank one on the last one, because I asked about that then.
Field service labor, Bobcat, 96, snow blade, pin for quick coupler, plow blade, and A-frame worn into all three holes and are now oversized and elongated. Plow frame was brought to shop and disassembled and brought to machine shop for line boring of 3 holes and straightened bent A-frame. Plow frame pieces were picked up and assembled to blade. Shop labor, machining, line boring of 3 holes and straightened A-frame that was bent. That was your 1,300.
So what that's not the skid steer, that is an attachment for the skid steer, which is an old piece of equipment, that's still at the transfer station.
And then the other Belgrade mechanical services for 693.55 is field service labor, remove and install of 2 lip cylinders for grapple attachment, grease cylinders, and then field service labor disassembly, assembly of 2 lip cylinders and install new seals and had to hone cylinder barrels for scoring and buff out pistons for scoring.
That's another piece of equipment, attachment that's at the transfer station, which is the original, but these are all originals. So these are old pieces of old attachments. It's not just skid steer, it's attachments.
Yeah, they're both billed to Ken, so transfer station.
Okay, and do we save any money if we bring the equipment to them? Because it says we're being charged for field calls. We have a trailer now, correct? An equipment trailer
I
that
don't
we
know how that works, and I, now that we have,
It's not like they gotta go too far,
right,
they just look across,
right, but it doesn't mean they're not charging us for a full field cost. Is there a set cost? Like, I was just thinking my parents, John, did like how much it costs them to come down. They start at $200.
well, the other thing is I think we need to start, and I spoke to Ken about it at our last meeting, I think we need to start Bobcats down in Augusta. It's not, we gotta transport it all the way to Bangor or all the way to Portland, it's in Augusta. Is it more beneficial and cheaper for us to have Bobcat repair this stuff, or no, I don't know, until we start looking into
What
it.
I would do is go in and talk to them and find out what the rates.
I mean, right, get it, find out what the rates are, this and that, I mean. I know that grapple bucket, we waited quite a while to get fixed.
Looks like they raised 105 an hour,
Yeah, so we'd have.
so 2 hours and 3 hours, and then 6 hours for the Bobcat snow blade.
That's for labor, Does that
Yeah,
include?
105 an
I don't
hour.
know.
I
So,
haven't been-
all you do is call.
I don't
Bobcat,
see any
but-
other charges other than the labor.
I'm thinking, and part of me saying, gee, that doesn't sound too bad, isn't that scary?
Yeah, I mean, you go to a new car dealer,
Yeah.
where Connor's gets
Oh.
now.
Yeah, I think they're.
It's-
$130.
Yeah.
And they all look the same.
Right, yeah.
I think they call one another, don't they? They,
I'm not part of it.
I think they do.
But I mean,
To be
105
sure
sounds
everybody's on the same.
reasonable.
105 isn't bad. for-
No, that's really not.
Okay, well, that's what I was checking.
That
I was,
seems
okay,
bad,
well, if
but-
we purchased this piece of equipment so we could move our equipment around.
Yeah.
And if it costs us less by doing that,
We can ask, I mean,
I don't think he does anything at a shop, I think he does everything on site.
Goes out, which is helpful to a lot of people.
yeah, I don't know if he has much of a shop down there behind
I
there,
don't either.
but
I just know he has a big truck, he has a big service shop, he even has a welders.
yeah, it's got the
Presses and
it's got
all
the, I think it's
that
got the boom on it, but lift it up. And
okay. We'll even big. On page 3. There is a thing for $425 for a counterweight. What is a counterweight? Well, I know what a counterweight is, but what is it for? It's just in the
Facilities.
facilities general.
So is that weight on the back? of
That
the
was
truck?
on.
I think, I'm just talking,
It's probably that cement block on the back.
yeah, I can't remember if that had that before. or not.
I don't think it did.
They probably.
But it does
used for
now.
For the weight and stuff.
Yes,
That's why I had my tires filled on my tractor and I still run account on it. I had a question on page 2, Bangor daily subscription.
I'm curious what that was.
What exactly, Bangor daily? subscription?
Library.
library, they must get the Bangor Demons.
We're paying $331.90 a year there for
All newspapers, run-
paper newspaper.
yeah. They
Is
all
that for
run
paper or is that online? Maybe an online?
They likely get, well, I would assume it's a tangible paper. Yeah,
Yeah, usually if you
my
get the paper
mom
prescription, you-
pays for the Sun Journal and she's paying $3 something a year to get it.
Can
It's really crazy.
can I ask one question on that warrant? How much are we paying per gallon for fuel oil right now?
3. Was it 25? Or 325 is propane.
Augusta Fuel,
No,
right?
propane, they went way down, like they gave us a killer deal in the propane.
I just got
25
heating oil at home. Just under 100 gallons and it was $400.
I just got heating oil yesterday and I was $3.19, $3.19 a gallon.
Well,
I'm not.
So what Augusta Fuel does with us with our contract, Bruce, is we have the contracted price, but
Right.
if their price comes in under that, then they
That's-
give us the
that's-
discount.
Right, I was just curious, because I know fuel oil is dropping very drastically right now.
It was 475 there not too long
Yeah,
ago.
it's dropping like 25, 30 cents a day. We'll see how long it holds.
I don't know. It's-
Why did we,
Well-
why do we buy a $379 ladder for the rec program?
It was a ladder to get up in the crow's nest, and when it was there, I asked facilities.
$312.
Perfect, that's perfect, it will go.
$312.
just a question. The Lakes Fire Department, is that a heating cost? $574, is that for a month?
Which page?
Page 1.
Page. Okay.
No, that's probably from delivery to delivery.
I don't know, I just looked at it and thought, there's a not, I mean, we keep the back room warm and we must
The
keep
whole
the
station.
bays.
Yeah, they have to say, we have vents in that bag,
You have what?
vents can't go below 65 degrees.
In the,
Depot fire station, we have vents there, can't go below 65 degrees.
oh, okay,
All our stations have to be 65 degrees. We have medical stuff in all our stations, and it has to be 65 degrees.
it seems as though we could find a portion, we could keep it 65 and keep the rest at 45 or
A lot
pick a
of
number.
times they're in the truck.
They're in the trucks.
Oh, they're in the trucks, okay, all right.
I mean, we can't go on a call and then run back to station and get meds. The meds are in the trucks.
Okay, no, I'm just thinking, could you grab meds when you took it?
No.
That's, okay, that answers my question.
Because
I'm like-
We have enough trouble getting them unplugged the electrical cord.
the air hoses across the slope.
That happens to many departments.
Okay, well, that answers my question, because I'm like, how can they spend that much money in a?
All right, so page 4, we just paid Eaton Peabody another $118.50 for this bright side judgment. So I would like to know what that is, because we did not have judgment with bright side now for a while.
They called to get a payoff, and the payoff came from the attorney
Charge 180.
A payoff for what?
for Brightside.
Like, what is he owe us?
He still owes
still owes.
6,000. He still owes 6,000 something in interest accrues every day.
So why is his attorney charging us for that information?
This gentleman used to work for, I believe, Bernstein Sure. And he was the one on that case, so he still handles it for us,
Right,
is my understanding.
so our attorney contacted us for the amount still.
No, we contacted the attorney for it.
Okay, and why do we not have a record of it?
We do now. because he told me what the interest is that accrues every day.
Okay, because we
In
do
that
have,
email.
we do have that document. We did previously.
Nick didn't have it, so we reached, that's why he gave me the attorney's name to reach out to. And then the attorney did reach out to me to find out if it had been paid in full, but it hasn't. There has been no payment. That was the first week of January of this year that the inquiry came in.
Do we send them a notice periodically, like, hey, we want our money? Or no?
Say, can you do another judgment? If it's not being paid. Something's been a time in my butt since
Right.
day one.
Mine too, especially when property changed hands, but it was only on paper because there was a lien from the town of Belgrade on the property. So if there was money that changed hands, we would have been paid. So we may want to revisit, I mean, because the terms of that. I don't know.
How much does he still owe?
It's 6,000 and something, yeah.
But I mean, it's high time to get it paid. You know,
If it was selling, it was done, what, 3 years ago?
well, it's not like there's no money being made. So, you know, at some point, the town needs to be paid, so can we put that on an upcoming agenda that we need to revisit that, and we need to see how long it's been, how much effort has actually gone into it? And, you know, we've been as nice as we possibly can be, and so is our attorney who handled it previously and is handling it now, but at some point, I don't want to pay our attorney anymore for it, and I want it to be done. So,
Do we have a lien on the property right now?
yes,
Just want to make sure.
that was why we were just tied the one that was a paper transfer.
Is that for big property taxes? After 18 months, they don't pay, you can.
I don't think so, but I don't think they can sell or remortgage or do anything else. That was the only thing they could pay us.
All right, under Jordan Equipment, on page 5,
That's needs to be their stuff.
what's more skid steer stuff, a fuel cap.
Equipment's Caterpillar deal. I mean, Bobcat deal.
Well, that deal.
Okay, so is this the new one?
No, no one's a, board.
Okay, so is this
It
still,
looks like seal,
Fuel cap.
seal, window, fuel cap. Hook without. GR creates, I don't know what that is. Hook.
some, I say the seal could be. For the
it
plow
says a window seal.
the window seal would be, okay, window seal would be the Bobcat.
Yeah, window seal 1091, hook 4532, and window seal 4188.
The cap, the fuel cap is 1091.
So is this,
Oh, sorry.
So
yeah,
this is the
yeah,
new
that
one.
was also.
No.
No, the old
Yeah.
one.
okay. That's why I need my equipment list. And we need to be, you know,
We implemented
what
that
are they for?
purchase
Then we
order
wouldn't
thing.
have
Not
questions.
yet. Nick was out most of last week.
Okay, so I still have another one. Under Main Accessibility Corporation, Town Office Doors. What did we pay? $347.24.
I'm sorry, what was the company?
Main accessibility.
Oh, I
Corporation.
think that's Center for All Citizens. It could be Center for All
No,
Citizens.
No, it's town office. That's because the handicap buttons haven't been working on the doors, and so
They've never been serviced.
Ford had to call in for this.
A lot of other stuff.
What's a convex mirror?
Convex mirror is probably one of those ones, put on the plow truck or whatever, do you know what I mean?
Says
Right.
dam.
This is for
That's a
the-
bunch of
Dam.
dams.
something over on the repair they did in the dam and,
Must be, but convex mirror,
Yeah.
right.
you know,
Like,
Yes,
so
your
you
broad-
see on the side of the road, these people like from Farmington, you heading out through, they got one of them. So you can't.
So they
see
may,
one of
they
these
may
guys.
put it on one of the dams, so what,
They get ready for like a gate or something.
yeah, when I.
Well,
opened
because
it,
one of the monitors fell.
Oh,
So there was something about a gauge had dropped, So I bet they needed a mirror there so that they can read the gauge, because
See the
it's
gauge,
where
yeah.
it belongs.
That makes sense.
Good.
That's why I ask these things, because I'm like, question mark, question mark. And State of Maine, page 7, State of Maine Harbor Masters Association, the mandatory training has been charged back to the planning board as education. And my assumption on that was that it should go to this code enforcement officer's budget,
I don't know that
and not the
we,
planning board.
that we have that available, but it's it's mandated by main statute that we have it. We have the mooring ordinance and you specifically have to have that if you have
That's
a.
heaven.
Right, but what I'm saying is the planning board, I don't know that we need to take $820 out of the planning board budget. It should either be split between the planning board and code enforcement, or should be just under code enforcement.
So do 50-50 code enforcement and planning board.
I mean, because how much is in the education line
don't
for
know.
the planning?
I,
board?
I think it all should come out of code enforcement, the pieces of harbor master.
Right,
But if we, I don't know if there's not enough money
There's no
there.
money in that, there's no money in that education. If I remember right, when we was doing budget training, I wanna say it was $250 in the budget.
Yeah,
in
it's
the
not much.
So
education.
that might be why they had to pull it out of there.
Yeah, so. I'm just going by memory from when we were doing budgets, but I wanna say it was $250. In
well, and if we
education.
knew that this was coming, we should have budgeted for it, because we didn't pay this for Gary. So if it's something mandatory for us to be doing.
Was he ever,
He
oh, he was
appointed
appointed harbor
harbor
master,
master,
wasn't he?
Yeah,
That's
But
how
he
we
may
got the
not have
little
been
bit.
licensed,
yeah.
He might not have
He
done
may
that.
never
even
gone
though
through the
he
training.
was appointed.
Yeah,
And they only do it once a year. It's a 3-day.
Oh, so
Training.
we're gonna pay this every year?
I don't think we need to pay it again. He'll be
he'll be
licensed.
trained. So
Trained,
Okay.
right.
When you said once a year, I was like.
No, well,
Yeah.
Then we
They
offer,
only-
then we offer.
they don't offer it once a year.
Okay,
It's a 3-day training.
Do we have
All right.
training for under general town administration?
Well,
Yes.
and we had a lot in there in the code enforcement officer's budget, because we're paying for anything additional that he needs. You know, Richard did, we paid for all of his training while he was on the job, some of Hans
Let's
he
just
done
find out what
previously.
was, for where it was, because it really should be in somewhere.
I'll check it and get that information out to you.
What was clean server room?
That's the server room. We've been having real issues with clutter. Can't identify things are not labeled, just.
So
So,
we paid $450
Well-
for somebody to come in and clean the server room?
no, not like what you're thinking. Not like a cleaning person. Not like a cleaning person with
Got it.
Windex and paper towels, but someone who actually works with all of that equipment to come in.
And do what with it though? What I'm getting at, what are they actually doing for the $450?
Right, I assumed, and I
Well,
shouldn't have
the-
assumed that it was the IT company
Yeah.
was coming.
There are,
It was
IT
mainstream software.
there are IT people. Just, I don't know what.
Oh, it says clean server room, e-waste.
Right,
Electronic
e-waste is taking out old equipment.
So they did take some more equipment out of there, and they shouldn't be charging us e-waste, because that can go to a transfer station for $0.
So. Remote, regular, $150 there, $150 is their hourly rate, so 2.5 hours. And travel 1 hour at $75 an hour. But it doesn't really tell me anything. Oh, here we go. Cody and myself arrived on site at 9 o'clock and spoke with Nick regarding the e-waste. We loaded all the items into Cody's vehicle. The old server, labeled server, was sitting on a spare rack on the floor. Plugged in and powered on and connected to the network. I ran an IP scan and found it was assigned, and it gives the IP address, and had the host name Belgrade Server 01. It had a display or serial cable from running from running from it to a mounted battery backup. Both power cables from the old server were plugged into the battery backup. Cody and I unplugged the server and loaded it on the vehicle. We confirmed the spare rack on the floor belonged to us, and we loaded that as well. We labeled the correct mounted server and included another sticker which said server to indicate it as such. We also labeled the cable modem and the UPS and the server and camera system was plugged into. This UPS is what was not powered on when I assisted TOB in their last outage, kind of upgrade in their last outage, so I wanted to ensure it was aptly named.
So was there a fee for the?
So
e-waste?
they removed the old server, which was still plugged in and running.
Also the e-waste?
$450.
Right,
Says
was
for the
depleted, but-
Well, that's the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah, that was the total cost.
Yeah, was there a charge? on the
It's 2.5,
e-waste?
it's 2.5 hours of labor. Seems like.
I don't see a charge here for e-waste.
Yeah, but I just,
And did we ask them to come in and do that?
It looks like,
Because it's not us who left the stuff in the room, is up.
it doesn't tell me.
might be them, I think.
It would be them who left it. So why are we
I
paying?
mean, if they
them
put in a
to-
new server, you think they would have disconnected the old
It
server. after they
doesn't
got
tell me
transferred stuff
who
over.
made the call.
Well,
Doesn't say.
can we ask them or have Nick call and find out who made the call? If we ask them to come and do it, if we're not the ones who left the equipment in there, when we put a new server in. Why are we paying them to remove something
But they should have removed.
that they
when
should have removed when they installed the
server.
new server?
And that's, you know, and we could have, facility maintenance could have disposed of that e-waste instead of paying them to dispose of that
But
e-waste.
as long as the hard drive, like they don't hard drive out there somewhere,
Right,
all the information there, but.
Wipe it clean up.
I mean, I think that should be part of the $1,500 a month that we pay them.
You would think
That's
so.
a crazy amount.
So. All right, do we have any other questions on this one?
The only other question I've got is, have we ever, I know we've mentioned it before, have we ever looked into getting competitive bids for pest control? I know we do a lot of pest control.
I do not know.
I think Corey's working on that, but that's something maybe wanna touch base on, because I know he was looking to bid it out, get it bid out.
We haven't bid it out for a while, because when we've done it previously, Modern Pest always came in with the better bid.
You see the critters. At the couple of the buildings, and they're supposedly. Pest control, they'll have critters, it's. That, you know, North Belgrade has critters on.
I'm just wondering if we can get a pest control company that can give us a bid on everything, you know, spraying with brown tail moths, they're doing everything, instead of having this one doing this, and this one doing this, and this one doing this. It's-
Right.
See if we can kind of combine some stuff.
I think the only one that does that, Terminix. Yes,
Well, and the
all.
ones that we also wanted to be very careful of is at the Center Fall seasons, we do not want them spraying chemicals around that are going to be detrimental to the public or the kids. Same thing with the North Belgrade Community Center, because there's food storage there for the food pantry. So you can't just,
You know, but all those companies are all ones. Our next one.
right, but I know Modern Pest was trying to work with us and not put down some of the stuff that they'd used previously.
Also, this time of year, we need to probably fall, start looking at these trees for brown tail moth nests.
They haven't put the grant money out there yet.
No, but this is the time where we want to find the nests. so.
You get the net.
Don't we have, I see a report somewhere about whether,
As
they were-
Corey went around with somebody down.
right, they were using drones or something to identify nests?
Yeah, Corey did go around with somebody,
So it would
that,
be.
mosquito bandit or somebody. like that.
Yeah.
Mosquito bandito.
That's Thomas's brother.
Right,
He does that.
I know. That's how we got mosquito banditos, because they do my property.
Yeah,
And
and,
Chuck probably doesn't.
and I think they went around, because they went around with Corey and showed Corey what to look for. You know, so he could identify other issues like up back here. Well, I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I know he did do that.
Did we vote on that warrant?
We've not yet, we have next question. All right, so if there's no more questions, Barbara,
Yes.
Carol,
Yeah.
Dylan,
Yes.
all right, 4 yeses.
Okay, questions on, there's some training that the fire department does in March.
Yeah.
Is that something isn't there something we're supposed to do once a year?
That,
Oh, my goodness, are
did you just break the chair?
I think it's just that.
Were you trying to lift your thing?
We do the Super Sunday stuff, which is. You know, sexual harassment and all the other stuff. You can do it online, or you can do it down there. Just-
I had a little note on the side, I was like, can I do my NIMS training then, when you guys do it? on
Which
Zoom?
names you gonna have?
I think it's different. That's done down.
You could have 200 or 400.
No, it's different than that. I think,
Yeah,
do you remember what it was that you took, Carolyn?
We did 400, right?
Did you do 400?
Yeah,
I have it in my email.
but that was FEMA stuff.
yeah, so 400, if you check with Travis, 400 we're doing it, well, it's just us chiefs are doing it out over. Because we have to.
My only question is if there's training, if there are other people because some of our committee people, did we talk about they could do it at different times?
Right,
They might
right.
want to do it that day. And if so, we would need to get that out there so people knew that
I
they
know
could do their
transfer
training.
station goes, facilities goes. Last year,
Admin is-
town office employees went in.
Yeah, admin, we don't have really a lot for training. I checked with Lynn today to be sure on the list I had, and it's like, it's very little.
I know it,
I just think we should find out who needs what and tell them what it is that's available if they want to do it in person. And don't you do that March? Well, or
Yeah,
something,
they're doing
it's coming right up.
the CPR recertifications that day too. So I don't know how many town employees that have the CPR certification has to get recertified.
Oh, they will be doing CPR certification?
Recertification. I don't think they're doing the full course, just a recert.
Well, I think that's what I need is the recertification.
Yeah.
Like, ooh.
I know, like mine's expired.
Mine's expired, but I think, anyway, doesn't matter. Well, I'll look at it. I'll talk to Travis
Yeah, Tom Travis with the end one of them.
because I'm gonna get certified so I can teach it.
That'd be Jeremy.
Huh?
That'd be Jeremy.
Yeah. Well, I've already talked, I mean, I know what I need to do. It's just, I have to get my CPR current so I can then take the course.
Yeah, I think Jeremy offers the course, right?
Yep.
He's an instructor.
Yeah, on this course, yeah.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the town manager report.
So the audit is completed, and that was sent out to you for review. Town clerk Mary Vogel completed the town report, and that should be mailed out soon. I just sent the last address file, to the printer this morning. The digital copy is available on the town's website. We spent a tremendous amount of time setting up the addresses in the format needed by the printer, and this should be looked at going forward for an easier and more cost-effective way to get reports to residents. I was telling Melanie, I spent no less than probably 25 hours on those. Mary said that they didn't require a particular format previously, but this year they have.
Yeah, and apparently how they came out of true was that they wanted $600 to
Do it.
to put the address labels on the town report. Because Trio is not formatted right.
Spirit of America nominations are due March 1. And we have received 4 nominations thus far. Maine DOT is moving forward with the final design of the water supply system. We're holding a candidate forum March 1, hosted by the Communications Committee.
I'm gonna interject at 5:30. And there's also gonna be a Zoom link, and we'll be sure this time that it's recording. So that it can be viewed after the fact.
March 1st.
Is that here? Or will that be
Yes.
here?
Here.
And I won't be here. So.
Yeah, you won't be. Code enforcement, Hans and I met with residents about a waterfront property that's been an ongoing source of concern to neighbors. We held a department head meeting to roll out the wellness program for employees It was a good meeting and also discussed, upcoming training that needs to be completed, annual training, including Super Sunday. The Communications Committee is working on the spring newsletter. I think, Maureen said maybe end of the week. She might have something for us, I think.
It's hard when she doesn't have a whole weekend, because she usually busts it all out in a whole weekend.
Right. Review and risk, I am reviewing risk management and safety training. Nick, Mary and I attended the Maine Government Finance Officers Association training. I was able to get those handouts and send out to you. I thought that was really good information on the LD ones and the amendments that they're proposing. Pretty interesting. Mary and I are attending Advanced General Assistance Training March 14. Absentee ballots are now available. The annual town meeting, of course, is going to be held in person, coming right up. There are several upcoming steering committee meetings for the lakes. Great Pond, Messalonsky, and Long Pond. I did have one this morning that was Friends of Messalonsky.
Let me interject. Did you get the notice that tomorrow's meeting is Zoom only?
Okay,
Because,
today was too.
oh, well, that was because someone at the MLRC has COVID or had COVID, so don't go to the meeting.
I won't, okay, I won't.
Okay,
I worked on a draft RFP for a tree service provider, so I included that for you all to review. And maybe take up at a future meeting. You had discussed it at the last meeting.
All right.
I have a question about your concern about the, setting up the addresses
Yes.
for mailing in the town report. Is that something that is gonna have to be redone every year?
What got exported, the format that came from Trio. The file, if you just look at a paper, so there were 3 columns of addresses, so John Doe at 123 Lakeside Avenue, Belgrade, Maine, and then underneath Jane Doe at 545 Lakeview Lane, Belgrade. So they were all in this format. What the printer needed was a column for the name, a secondary name, the first address, a secondary address, and then city, state, and zip. And those needed to go in a single line across. And then you just, keep adding as you go. So we've got 3,000 and something addresses to do. All of them were all formatted, so they were all together like this, done vertically, exported from Trios. So we had to cut and paste each block of text into a new file, into the appropriate column.
so basically you had to set up an Excel spreadsheet,
Yes, yes.
right? Yeah, I had to do that when we did the thing.
So
It
it's like,
is annoying.
it was
takes
like,
forever.
it just took forever. It really did take,
But once it's done, then you just have to
but we didn't
update.
pay $600 to have.
But it took 25 hours of your time.
Yes,
Did we save any money?
no, well, in a sense, yes,
They're
and
gonna say, if she did it, then she
Yeah.
takes salary, so,
Yeah.
yeah, you save money.
So I was just trying to scroll through my photos because the Spirit of America Awards, I know we need to get some frames for it, and I swore I took a picture of mine at home. Because how we used to do it is how we discussed last year, getting back to it. So what we had done was there was the Spirit of America certificate and then a small version of the front of the annual report.
Yeah, well, we used to take a lot. with the smaller version, they kind of cover off and mat them.
Right, so these were, well, this was, so what mine is, it's the scaled down version, so we took the front page and it was scaled down to a 5x7, and then on the other side is an 8x10 with the actual award. And the frame is like this, and it was a black frame, and it looks really nice. We kind of cheesed out the last couple of years, and we're just putting them in a frame. And it's nice to see that, and you have the annual report, and that this was the year that your award is for.
Yes, Kenny, he may have, I think he has, there's a transfer station, got. The committee got it, and I think it's in his office.
Yeah, because I was saying, otherwise, it's on the wall at home, and I swear, I was just going through, I was like, God, I swear I took a picture of that, but it must have been a while ago, and
I
I can't
remember
get
the
back
first
in
year
there
we
and
did
find it.
that, because I went, took them all home, and I cut out the matting
Ugh.
and made all the matting myself, remember?
Oh, I do.
It's
The
expensive,
first time we did it,
yeah.
and then it was like, okay, now we're gonna find somebody to do it, no.
So apparently between now and town meeting, need to do that.
Yeah, mine
If
is
you
a
can
wood
get
plaque that's
If anybody
engraved.
has a picture of one, if you can send it so I can see what it looks like.
Yeah, I'll try to do it when I get home.
Okay.
The town report this year, what do we use for a photo on it? Because normally we send those submissions for photos, and I don't remember seeing the photos this year. What do we put on the cover
Did
this
we do
year?
Ricky on the
It was
first?
Ricky. It's
Okay.
on the.
Because
on the
we did
website.
Gary last year,
Okay,
so I think they just moved it forward.
and that's fine, I just couldn't remember. Because normally we see all these photos. that
Well,
come
then we
in.
talked about what we were gonna do on the back page.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Okay, does anybody have anything else?
Just, I was looking at this draft for the RFP for tree service, it's got all the town facilities listed. Don't we use them for when we have to do stuff out on the roads? So I would think it's anywhere in town, so. I don't know how you put it down, but it's not just using town facilities.
You can list the facilities and other duties as assigned or other.
Because I think it's, doesn't it? I was thinking it's somewhere in here. Shall furnish all labor, tools, equipment, materials, revision necessary to perform safety in grid, annual pruning, removal, and planting of trees, inventory, system management, and other agriculture related services. And they have to be licensed, of course. They have to keep a log.
Are we asking them to
Oh, here, it says at
review
the
these?
top of that page, it says
Scope of work.
Scope of work, there you
Oh,
go,
yeah.
top of page 3.
So,
Street trees.
if you've got a scope of work and it says, town facilities and everything else.
This is
Yeah.
actually I think this is actually adapted from your electrical services and generator RFP.
Which makes sense, because the facilities are not gonna be running outside of the road.
Well, and we've not ever asked of a contractor that they were gonna be doing the planting of trees or anything like that. This is just when we have down trees. If there's a problem tree, it used to be under the road commissioner.
And I don't know if we want somewhere in there for, hardwoods, if we're not gonna let them haul them off. We take them down, like, so we'll keep all
Yeah,
that, because those towns use them.
Right.
Yes.
I know all these
Just
tree,
tweak that.
all these tree guys, they take the hardwood and they resell
Right.
Which is probably reflected in their pricing.
Oh,
Or no?
it.
No,
No,
No?
gosh, no.
no, that's
That's
just
just
like,
an added
that's just like when they used to do Halon systems and computer rooms.
Yeah,
When they outlawed Halon with the free CFC. We'd get people to call us up to decommission a room. I'd charge them X amount of dollars to go decommission a room. I'd haul a 300-pound cylinder out into my truck and ship it off to a company that rebuys that and reclaims that Halon.
Hmm.
I'd make $2,000 or $3,000 on that cylinder. I'd still charge them to do all the work, pull it out. If they didn't want it, that's why I said we need to, if we don't want it, that's fine, they can haul it away, but if we want the wood, we need to specify that
right.
we want the wood.
I mean, because we get all the brush and this and that, because that all gets trucked to the transfer station, so so we're getting the garbage side of it, so you should be getting the wood side of
The
it.
prime
not
stuff,
them getting the wood side of it. And sometimes there's logs and stuff like that these guys take out and sale.
Speaking of brush, that brush pile is about the size.
It's shrinking.
It is. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
they started grinding on it last week.
We're over there on Saturday, and it's so tall. So high.
2 truckloads out of there already.
All right, and this came from Ned.
Yeah, Nick and I put that together, so I just, wanted to get it typed up and give it to you, so you could look at it and be thinking on it.
Do you each have one?
Yes.
Okay. So how do we take 5,000 out of waste removal?
I mean, Kenny, if we have to, like he said, he could somehow squeeze it around, but we still don't know where that state taxing is gonna put us. That's what that 5,000 is.
Right.
That new LD, whatever, that we're gonna have, that still hasn't been, the manager still hasn't been charging that, and I'm hoping we're not gonna get stuck with back charges.
All right, if nobody has anything else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second, or so we'll,
I'll second it. All those in favor? Assuming there's no discussion, Dan,
Yes.
Carol, Barbara, yes. All right, 4 yeses, 9 o'clock, look at us go.
I will try to get that other information back.
Oh, good.
On that. L.
Yeah, that public hearing, good.
Did you mention it to Mary?
I haven't yet. She was out Thursday and Friday last
Okay,
week.
mention to her, John, if you want to contact some of the clerks. I got a piece of legislation, it's going for public hearing in the committee on